the idea that a groove and a feel is the most important thing. My belief is that this is incorrect, and I can prove it.
Okay.
Right here on camera.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Here we go.
So a couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to sit down with Jeff Berlin while I was at NAMM, and that was really exciting for me because Jeff is an absolute monster bass player and kind of a polemical figure in bass education. He's a really passionate teacher that really cares for his students, but also holds viewpoints that run contrary to a lot of the mainstream educational resources out there. His tone may have mellowed in recent years, but he certainly hasn't diluted his main message, and I'm really excited to share this interview with you guys. And I apologize in advance about the audio. The floor at NAMM is kind of like if you put 12 guitar centers in a single room, so yeah. Anyway, enjoy the video.
And I just ate a salad with blue cheese dressing, so I'll try not to offend
It's all right. I had one of those like burrito bowls with all the onions, so I'm good. So I'm hanging out here with Jeff Berlin. This is really cool. If you don't know who Jeff Berlin is, shame on you. But he is an amazing bass player and also a pugilistic bass educator, I feel like would be a good way of describing.
They called me that.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to say that the reason that I'm doing this interview with you is I heard a commentary by you on the internet, and I was so taken with your really great breadth of awareness of things, learning concepts of bass. In fact, you were so eloquent and really so clear about your thoughts. I thought you're maybe the only one of your kind that I've seen on the internet who clearly states things that I feel very close to what I consider the truth of learning. Right. In that paradigm, I'm here to talk with you because I really respect you. I think everybody should pay attention.
Well, thank you very much. From my perspective, the people that that I see around me, like younger musicians, like so much of what they learn, how they learn, is just by seeing what's on the internet and grabbing it. Because there's a lot of very good information out there on the internet. There's a lot of terrible information out there. I don't know whether or not it's good or bad. Like that's the real thing. Like, do you think that it's good or bad, or I don't know? What your thoughts on like internet, what the internet is for music education?
Well, there's a couple of things. The combative element of me was once a true concept because there's a before psychotherapy and an after psychotherapy, Jeff.
Okay.
And in the before end of it, which was for a great portion of my life, I was combative in my disdain of things. And at a time where I finally said this was symptomatic, I had to change a whole lot of things. And I went to 3 years of some of the deepest therapy. It's very painful, but you learn a lot of truths.
Yeah.
I came out of it with several changes that occurred. One, my offerings to bass players are offerings they can accept or, of course, reject. They have to make choices because it's their musical lives, their musical careers, even the future of their own musical pleasure to play that rests on their decisions. So what didn't change were my opinions about how to learn and what the differences between my vision of learning and what I would view as almost the entire educational bass system in all areas is. So you mentioned the internet, and I'm flooded with answers, so I have to lean them down. And here's what I have to propose.
Okay.
Bass playing in general is not a complicated principle.
Yeah.
In general, bass playing is rather simple and predictable in most cases. Mixed in with that are individuals who have their own vision of bass and have been exciting for bass players to listen to.
Right.
If we keep to that thinking, it's very simple to realize that for the most part, the offerings in bass education are so overly stated to work, but in my opinion don't. Okay. They're flowery. There's so many things to learn on the internet.
Yeah.
But in truth, it really 98% of them don't matter. And the reason is because the function of bass is so predictable that with a simple regimen of good music bass lessons in a year, any bass player who had demystified their bass would then have the opportunity to listen to records and figure out things, decide how to improve.
Yeah.
So what the problem is with most bass players that are on internet motivated is most of them don't know about music, haven't been trained in music, and are also guided by the messages of famous institutions, famous bass teachers, famous magazines, famous clinicians, famous internet messages, websites that promote fun. Now, fun is great, but learning is different. So that's the gist of my whole view of this. Bass players have so many resources, so many websites. If they only knew that if they just simplify and go to a good teacher to teach them that this is a triad, which they won't do because it doesn't artfully appeal to them.
Right.
That's the gist of my message. Just check out the fact that there's only 2 ways to learn how to play the bass. This might prove interesting. I can't think of a third way, and I invite you and maybe one of your viewers, if you can think of a third way, to let me know what it is. The 2 ways are this. One, self-taught.
Right.
Self-taught includes 100%, not 99, but 100% of every electric bass player that ever played the electric bass at any age and any time in music history.
Right.
100% of all of us that play bass are self-taught in some way. Now, when you consider this...
I'm curious what exactly you mean by that, like self-taught.
Yeah, I should explain. Self-taught is anything that one decides to do to improve themselves that is not coming from someone that they had paid to teach. If I pay you to fix my pipes in my sink, I expect that you do the job that I paid you to do. If I decide to fix the pipes in my sink because I saw an article or I'm going to try it myself, if it works or doesn't work, it's my experimentation and it's on me, the results. So a self-taught bass player is someone who, on their own terms and in their own manner, listens to whatever music, practices whatever, uses whatever strings, tries whatever amps, plays with whatever band, listens to whatever drummers. Anything that they do whatsoever in their own self-decision as a player in gigs, as a practicing bass player, it includes or is surrounded by the self-taught idiom, self-taught concept. Self-taught is anything you do on your own. An education of academia, and that's the second point. So the first thing that we are self-taught. The second thing we are, if we're doing it right, is learning music. And only music and nothing but music. And let me tell you how well that this concept worked. It worked so well that for 500 years, everybody that was ever taught was only taught by music. And that concept worked so well that everybody who was taught achieved some skill to perform and express music for themselves, right up to the greatest who created it, like the Beethovens and the great musicians. Louis Armstrong is self-taught. Gary Burton is self-taught. But Jack Bruce is self-taught and studied. I'm self-taught and studied. Jaco Pastorius and James Jamerson, the 2 most revered bass players, are both self-taught, and they both studied music. Jaco said he's not taught. That's not true. Jaco had a way of exaggerating his reality. Jaco was a trained musician and studied with a couple of guys and learned from bass players.
Great.
So if there's only 2 ways to learn, can you think of, I don't know if a third option?
Based upon the parameters you just gave, not really.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll think about it though. Maybe I'll come up with a way.
That would be good. Yeah, maybe somebody would. And check it out. Some guys will say jamming, but jamming is a self-taught.
Yeah, I would definitely fit that within the self-taught idea, especially playing with other people.
So what this shows is there is a concept in bass that broad thinking is a great thing to do, but broad doesn't specify things.
Right.
Narrow specifies things. And bass players, in my opinion, have been told and are guided in the wrong direction to improve if this is their goal. That bass players that improve have always narrowly, specifically learned to improve. Lawyers do it, college students do it. We did it as kids learning English in school.
Yeah, the whole idea about limitations breeds, well, I would say creativity, but limitations, the idea of like having a very narrow set of guidelines to work with, of course, in any particular field, be it music or wherever, that idea is like when you have this narrow set of parameters, provides the biggest room for growth. And I definitely agree with that. That's really...
I think it makes sense if one looks at everything as how everything is learned.
Yeah.
Literally everything. I think it would be good for people to look how one learns a vocation, how
Right.
one learns a second language,
Right.
how one learns a college class, how every instrument, oboe, violin, piano, cello, the classical instruments are still taught this way, and all oboists that complete the regiment are qualified to play.
Right.
But there's 1,000 to 10,000 times more bass players than oboists,
Right.
and most of these guys have not accomplished what they could have accomplished because of the idea, I think, that you could take
Right.
from this, you could learn from anything. And if you
Exactly.
could learn from anything, why haven't we? When you graduate from Juilliard, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
or the Manhattan School of Music, these type of academies, the graduate has gone through a curriculum that is entirely music-centric. And that is literally entirely. They barely learn anything other than practicing, let's say, a pianist,
Yep.
the curriculum and the elements of it. I don't see bass players having the same
Like intensive.
option
Yeah, I got you.
in that this is what happens. In the early days of bass education, we weren't really that educated with the instrument because it was that kind of
It's
new instrument.
new, yeah.
But I gotta say one thing, in those days, back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, or whatever, and maybe a little bit toward the end of the 70s, teachers only taught music. Now, when you look at curriculums, generally worldwide and in all areas, there is such a broad palette of choices that students shouldn't be offered to make. And the reason is, and this is my opinion, is they're not qualified. Let me go to medical school, but I don't want to work on artery reconstruction. I want to work on heart transplant. So I'm going to
Gotcha.
take a class in the morning of a little bit of heart, and then in the afternoon I'll take a kidney class, and then tomorrow maybe I'll take a liver class.
Yeah.
You notice that in the so-called serious areas of learning, they don't ask students or give them permission to choose what it is they're going to learn or how they're going to learn it. I mean, you may choose your course, but once you've chosen the course, in practically maybe all areas, even learning how to drive a car is out of your hands. If you take a motorcycle license, that's different than a four-wheel car license, but once you've chosen what course you take, it's out of your hands. The teachers say, this is what it is, it's my way or the highway. Bass players have rejected this premise due to an emotional dislike that either they are not happy with being told what to learn or how to learn it, or two, they believe or are given the message that they are allowed to make their own choices, but they're not qualified to choose those things. I'm not qualified to choose what classes in medicine or law, or how even to be a plumber. I don't want to work on copper pipes. I want to work on plastic pipes.
Right.
You know what it is? Bass players have been given the message that anything they play is okay, anything they wish to learn is okay, whatever they want is okay, and for me, they have, the message givers have offered a delusion of reality to their bass players, because and bass players are happy to accept it because there's no responsibility to learn. See, my message is specifically to these people. If you choose to study the bass, if you choose to go to a school or go to a teacher or go to a bass event or go to you're self-taught if you buy books. If you go to any source for an education and you lose your right to say how you want it to be done. And that's good for them because bass players, 90% of us, aren't qualified to know what we need. And I've gotten these messages for years saying, I'm a real looker into the bass community. I mean, I really see things that are going on that I think other people don't. And it's just due to my background. I'm one of the few guys like me in bass. I'm 64 and I started at 5 on violin. I was a 10-year violinist. I studied with the greatest jazz bass players, not jazz bass players, jazz teachers in history. And played with the number one musicians in history. And you get all that together, you don't find many guys, if any guys, like me. So in that sort of permissive area that they give today, you can't learn what I learned if you choose to learn because bass players aren't really interested. So in a sense, and I hate to say this, bass players are cutting their own throats.
Like, I think that also says something that the seriousness with which people treat music in general, like not only just in education, but just in life. Like, it's almost like a game in terms of this is a fun thing to do rather than a serious thing to do. That is a career that is very much an expression of like human truths in the world, and as every bit important in terms of like how you treat it and how you should treat it as being a medical doctor. And I think that idea, of course, like being the a la carte method, I'm going to start calling it what you say.
It is. It's the buffet method of
The
learning.
buffet method, yeah.
I actually have an answer kind of already for you in the buffet offering, and the fact that bass isn't as serious an item as medicine might be. And that it's more of a fun item than a serious one.
Right.
And I hear what you're saying. So my answer to you, or let's say a thought or a question would be that people that buy golf clubs generally almost always take lessons. Now we're talking about a fun hobby.
Yeah.
A fun hobby.
Yeah.
Now, how much fun is it to hit the ball and it dribbles down the court, down the green? How much fun is it to hit the ball and it always hits the water or the sand trap?
Right.
It's the goal of learning golf to learn the skills of golf to make it fun. The fun, if it can't be fun if you can't even get near the green, near the hole.
Well, this idea about like the education being like the sparkly fun thing, like maybe it's not the act of doing the golf that's the fun thing. Maybe if there was like this whole golf education industry that was designed to be like super fun and entertaining to watch the golf videos or something. I know nothing about golf, but I'm just like trying to make the analogy work. Yeah.
I'm really very narrow, as you notice, in the perspective.
Right, yeah. No,
if you go to a school, if you go to me, if you go to a teacher and pay a piece of your hard-earned income, you have to have some serious intention.
Right.
And golfers have serious intentions. They work on their grip for a long time. A grip, how to hold it, how to move the wrist. That's how serious they are about a fun enterprise.
Right.
Bass players can learn from this and recognize that as soon as you bought a bass, I assume the intention is to learn how to make it work.
Right.
Bass players are not interested in learning how to make it work. Bass players instead are interested in playing, performing, and I know this for a fact from Facebook. I'll write a thing and say, time is an eternal thing. And 100% of the responses are, but what about click tracks? What about drummers? What about when I'm on the gig? I said, I'm not talking, huh?
No, I love your the whole like internet shitstorm, whatever you post.
It's
like
not
that.
for me. It's no longer a shitstorm.
Yeah.
For me, it's here's a thought.
Right.
Accept it or don't.
Right.
If you see a flaw in my logic that learning music exclusively in an academic setting is wrong, let me know where I'm wrong. I'm happy to learn.
Right.
So far I haven't had anyone write me saying learning music exclusively is wrong for these reasons, because I will cite the 5 centuries, the half a millennia where it was the only way it was taught.
Right.
Okay. But again, I don't know anything about anything, but in this I believe I do. So if you're serious, you bought a bass. You know what a bass was first built to produce?
Low notes, I guess. I don't know.
Well, you're partially right. A note.
A note, a single note, okay.
Notes. Literally, that's the function. The second thing is that the note that you chose will be low.
Right.
But the very first principle of learning a bass is to produce a note.
Produce a note, okay.
There is a belief, I think, that groove counts more than anything else in bass. I've heard a lot of people state this. More than notes, more than harmony, more than playing. It's a false concept, and I can prove it here, right now. Groove is not the first element of bass playing. It's the last element of bass playing.
What exactly do you mean by that? Being the
I
last
mean that
one,
in the hierarchy of importance.
Okay.
If somebody states an important element of bass that's more important than some other element by saying that a groove is more important than a pitch,
Gotcha.
and that bass players adhere to the idea that a groove in the field is the most important thing, my belief is that this is incorrect, and I can prove it.
Okay.
Right here on camera.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Here we go. If you take on your bass a song like All Dang Syne.
Okay.
All right? I don't know. People don't know that one. So let me get a song everybody knows. The national anthem. Our American national anthem.
Okay.
If you're a foreign person, your national anthem.
Oh, Canada.
Oh, Canada, I need to get some syrup. Pause. So that's not there.
It's gonna. Yeah.
So think. Okay, now you have the bass.
Okay.
I want you to play the national anthem of America in A flat.
All right.
Okay, so now, though we don't have a bass here, look at the way you did it. The first thing, and on your video, look at this. Your eyes kind of went up. Why did your eyes go up? Because the first thing you were thinking of was the melody, the notes.
Right.
The notes.
Visualizing, yeah.
The second thing you thought of is where do they go on the neck?
That's
and
awesome.
And the third thing you do was execute it.
Right.
Okay. Now take like a bass line, like a funk line, like a Jamerson funk line.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is easier to do. If I say do this funk line, you'll go for a second, your eyes will go up, think of the bass line to My Girl.
Okay.
You know, and the first thing you'll do, everyone will do, is think, okay, what's that note? Where is that?
Where is it? Okay, I got it.
Oh, that's it. Let me play it. Now I've got it.
Right.
So now I'm going to relax into it. And what is the ultimate result of first thinking of the notes where they are on the neck and playing it? What's the last thing that happens?
And actually applying it, making it
as a group, correct.
That's fantastic. That's a great way of thinking about it. I love that.
Well, see, I do think about these things, and the ironic thing is that I don't think anyone can refute it. It's a beautiful thing, and it should be applauded, because what I want to do by having a chat with you or have people see this is to simply rethink the messages that they've gotten and see from my perspective if what I say affects a positive change. I'm not here to cause harm.
Yeah,
you know?
Of course.
I'm here to cause change.
Right.
And I've always disagreed in the manner that bass is taught, not by evil people, but by kind, loving, supportive, nurturing, great, loving human beings. I recognize their kind hearts. My thing is I feel that the messages are not based in musical solidity. Groove is the interpretation of time. It is not a quarter note. In a rubato section in a Beethoven symphony, there is a groove. And if you listen to the great symphonies and they have sectional playing, they breathe together.
Right.
You see the conductor doing this thing. They're breathing together. And let me tell you what, the only people that can groove are the people that can play.
Right.
It's a flat fact. If anyone has trouble with groove, it's not an insult. It's a good bit of news.
Right.
The difficulty is that they do not know how to play, so they have to learn how to play. If you learn how to play, you're going to learn how to groove. I mean, they use metronomes for grooves, but metronomes is not a real usable instrument. People will use a metronome to acquire good time before they've actually understood that good time only comes when somebody knows how to play and doesn't have to think about it. Gotcha. Time is a reward. It's not a mandate learned by clicking. And this is another contrary thing, and I could prove this. I could prove this live. I could prove it with you if we had a bass here.
Yeah, so go for it,
And I don't mean to cause, again, harm or stir things up. Think about these things. Notice that no society anywhere on earth that ever was taught self-taught, or even in an educational element, ever used a metronome.
Right.
That they all learned through the element of learning playing, and that the reward for that was that thing called groove. It is not a highly necessary element of learning. I'd rather bass players learn minor, major 7 chord tones, which for the most part many won't, which is a shame. If they learn things that have nothing to do with art, they'll find in 6 months to a year there's nothing in bass that they can't play. You know,
that's true. Well,
that's my message.
Well, thank you, Jeff, so much for talking with me. This was really awesome.
So thank you so much for watching this, and thank you, Jeff, for letting me sit down with you and talking with you, because it was really eye-opening and illuminating. And, you know, for people watching this who might think that some of the things that Jeff was saying might not necessarily be what they want to do, that's fine. Just know that learning somebody else's truth and learning about their truth does not necessarily mean that you have to forsake your own. And learning from somebody as accomplished and who has spent so much time thinking about these things as Jeff can be a very useful thing for expanding your worldview and thinking about different ways of approaching your own musical career and your own musical path. And that's very important. So I want to say thank you for watching this. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Also consider joining my Patreon like these people have below, to them I'm able to do these videos and also fly out to NAMM and meet Jeff, and that was great. That was really exciting that I was able to do that while I was there. I have a new video coming out every Monday, so please stay tuned. And until next time,
Bass.